Dr. Anthony Fauci recently announced that he will leave the federal government in December. The COVID-19 pandemic has made the scientist simultaneously one of the most revered and reviled men in America. How did that happen? Dr. Fauci, who's 81, has decided that it's time to pursue what he calls the next chapter of his career. But the chapter that's ending has been extraordinary and turbulent. Fauci has spent almost 40 years as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and he was the focus of controversy a whole generation before COVID hit American society. Fauci had a leading role in responding to the HIV and AIDS crisis in the 1980s and early 1990s. In those early days, he was the focus of enormous criticism from activists who felt that the federal government was not responding with enough urgency to the crisis. In the end, Fauci won many of those same activists over, and some of his most fervent critics became personal friends. That trajectory was in some ways reversed over the course of the COVID pandemic. When the virus first hit America with full force, Fauci was very much an admired figure. A 2020 story in The New Yorker carried a headline about him having become America's doctor. That story noted that his approval rating in one poll at the time was just short of 80%. But now, an Economist YouGov poll this June found Americans pretty much split down the middle when it comes to the scientist. Now, Fauci's record on COVID is, for sure, not unblemished. Perhaps his most famous misstep came early on when he advised the general public against wearing masks. He subsequently reversed course, explaining in part that the early data had not demonstrated that a lot of asymptomatic people were in fact highly infectious. All of that being said, academic studies, both in the US and internationally, have largely borne out the effectiveness of some consistent Fauci recommendations. So why has his popularity waned so drastically? Part of it stems from his clashes with former President Trump. Fauci at times contradicted Trump, and his high public profile seems to have irritated the former president. Crowds at Trump rallies during the 2020 campaign would chant "Fire Fauci," and Trump often seemed sympathetic to those calls, even if he never acted on them. But it's not just Trump. Fauci has clearly come to be seen as an emblem of what some people see as an oppressive government response to the pandemic. Politically, he has had particularly fiery exchanges with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, and he has become an enemy of figures like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. All of those things sap Fauci's popularity, and at their extremes, they have led to threats on his life. The America that Dr. Fauci sees at the end of his career is vastly different to the one that was there at the beginning. And these days, it may simply be impossible for anyone to be America's doctor.